that set out who's going to do what on safety, and that would include management of subcontractors. And we would also expect that a business would go and check that those contractual requirements were being implemented in the way that a contractor was managing its subcontracts. So we expect our people to audit that BP's requirements are in place and that they're fulfilling their obligations.
As the Chief Safety Officer for BP, do you have a required paper trail of safety concern? If a worker, either contractor or BP employee, reports a safety concern either on an offshore rig or at a refinery site, do you have a required paper trail that you as the safety officer require them to have to see to it that at first it's noted and second it's investigated?
There are multiple channels. If a worker raises a concern with his supervisor, then we would expect them to take action to address a safety issue immediately. You know, our requirement is that they make safe. If the concern is one that requires an investigation, and we set out at what level an internal investigation would be required, then that would need to be documented, and that's auditable. But we also have other channels for workers to raise concern, independent channels. Inside the company we have our confidential, anonymous line, a 1-800 number where people could raise concerns, and that goes to a separate function, our compliance and ethics function, who would carry out an independent investigation, would work out what was going on, and then would give feedback to the employee. In the US, we also have an external independent person, the Judge Sporkin, the Ombudsman, who would also, confidential calls could be made to him, it would be investigated and documented. So yes, when concerns are raised, then they would be documented.
Thank you for your testimony, and would appreciate it if you would let the committee know if you can supply us with that contract between BP and the Transocean.
I'll work with your staff to see what we can do.
Thank you very much.
One question really quickly before I turn it over to my committee members. You mentioned in response to one of my questions that you have 50 outside safety auditors. Can you provide the members of this committee with their audits?
I'll have to work with your staff to see what we can provide information on audits.
Okay, thank you. Senator Franken.
Dr. Flynn, thank you for being here today. I know you've been the target of a lot of anger and frustration of late, and I appreciate your being here. And thank you for your expression of empathy and sadness for those who died on the rig. When we had the hearing a few weeks ago, one of the fathers, one of the men who died on the rig was here, and he said that no one from BP had ever talked to him and expressed their apologies or condolences. Have you talked to any of the members of the families of those who died?
I've not personally talked to them, but I would have expected that BP people would have done that.
You would have expected it?
Normally, if there's an accident, then our business people would get involved, but I don't know the details of this particular case.
So you don't know for sure whether anyone from BP has contacted any of those families, do you?
I don't know that, but I could find out.
Well, this gentleman said that no one from BP had talked to him. Mm-hmm. I think you should know that. The Center for Public Integrity recently published a report noting that BP is responsible for 760 of the 761 egregious and willful, that's what they're called, OSHA violations over the past 3 years. This is post-Texas City, of course, when you were going to change your culture of safety. That's a pretty hard statistic to believe. Do you have any comment on that?
We were disappointed with the 760 violations because we believed that we were in compliance with the requirements of those orders. Now, what I would say is that in making those citations, OSHA did use a differential approach. They did do a per instance citation versus in other cases where they would find a system finding. And so that generates a higher number of citations. We wouldn't be comparing apples with apples in other cases. All of that said, we're absolutely committed to resolving those differences with OSHA, to fixing the problems. And at the end of the day, OSHA and ourselves do want to achieve the same thing, a safe workplace and safety for workers.
Okay, well, I mentioned in my opening statement in my conversation with Mr. Drevna, the president of the National Petrochemical and Refineries Association, and I was asking him about the industry's efforts to self-monitor and self-regulate, and in response he explained that there were efforts within his group to set and meet industry safety standards, as I said, within their trade group. And then when I mentioned this figure, 760 out of 761, I mean, it seems to make BP seem to be something of an outlier. And this is an egregious and willful violations. So when I asked him why more hadn't been done to correct the problems at BP, he replied that BP wasn't a member, and that it was the only major refinery that wasn't a member. Why are you a member of that trade association, which seems to have at least some self-policing within their own group on safety? And I mean, the 760 of 761 seems to suggest that you may be something of an outlier.
I've talked about the 760 and how a different approach was taken on that, and the fact that we are working to resolve those differences with OSHA. I don't believe that we are an outlier, and we work with multiple trade associations, both in the USA and around the world, so we certainly have...
You work with them, you say, but I'm asking why you aren't a member of a trade group that self-polices its safety standards, and yet you are the only major refinery that operates in the United States that isn't a member of this self-policing trade association.
So I will need to look into the specific situation with the NPRA. I understood that we were a member of the NPRA, and so we'll need to find out...
You thought you were a member of this?
BP certainly has been a member of NPRA, so perhaps something has changed. I'll need to look into it and get back to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Senator Bennet? Senator Casey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sir, we appreciate you being here, and thank you for your testimony.